where New Zealand is and where Christchurch is? Yeah, a thumbs up if you know Christchurch or New Zealand. Yeah, good. Nice. Oh, nice to see a few people who know where Christchurch is. That is great. Right. So what I'm going to do today is I've been invited to talk to you all about project management. So I'm going to be sharing a few slides to talk about project management and what it is all about. So in this session, what we are going to do is just look at a few things about projects, then define what a project is, and then look at important things to consider in a project, right? So I've got 3 pictures here. How many of you have heard of the Great Pyramid of Giza? Let's do a thumbs up again if you've heard of that. Excellent. Yeah, I can see a few. Very good. How many of you know the London Eye? Oh, good. So we've got a few more. Oh, and then we've got a love heart as well for the London Eye. Seems like that person's been there. And the next one, it's an airport. It's the Beijing Airport. It's the latest airport, I think, which actually was meant to open when COVID happened. Have you guys heard about it? No? Right. So this airport is probably a very big airport, is what I understand. And it's built in the shape of a starfish. Well, but why am I telling you all this? What do you think is in common about these ones? So are the participants allowed to have the chat function? Yes, no? Maybe I'll just stop sharing and I can see if I can. Yeah, or maybe you can't send a message. So that's all right. So I'm going to go back to my presentation. So when you think about all of these, they are all construction. They are all construction projects. Now, what makes them a project is what I'm going to be talking to you today. So you might have a few examples at your place. So let's come to that in a little bit. Based on what we have taught or looked at as examples, what can you think of as projects in your environment? And why do you think those would be projects? So could we allow the participants to chat just directly with the host or with me? Because I would like them to share their examples. So write down an example and you can share it in the chat window, right? We can now, so that's great. So if you guys think of what could be a project that you can think of in your city, in your town, in your place where you live, just type it in the chat window and tell me why do you think it is a project? You know, there might be big construction buildings there, or airports, or highways. Right, good. So can you give me an example? And I'd like as many of you to share your examples, because we are, it's a good opportunity for us to share examples and learn. So let's give you guys a few minutes, maybe another 2-3 minutes, and I'll wait for the answers to come through. Yeah. Nice. So I've got a charitable project as an example in there, a new lesson in a class. Yes. Any other examples we want to share? I'm going to wait for another 2 minutes to see if more examples come through. Excellent. A project to facilitate the SDGs. Very good example. Building a new accommodation. Yes, that would be correct too. Providing poor children with learning tools. Yes, as a project, yes. Project to equip high school students with soft skills. Yes, if it's the first time that it's being done, yes, that would be correct. What else would be? Raise funds for COVID patients. Yes, that would be another example of a project. Right, another 30 seconds, and we'll see if we get more examples in here. Oh, I think we've run out of examples. Right, so coming back to our set of slides. So this is where you guys were telling me about an example, and you've highlighted what it was doing by saying that it needs to produce an outcome, it needs to have a purpose around what it's trying to achieve. And you're right. So this is what a project does. So a project is generally a unique undertaking that is there to deliver a specific output, and it's got, or a deliverable, as they say in the project management language, and it's got a start date and an end date. So when you're starting to look at any project, how you would define it is by the fact that it needs to be unique, that it's the first time it's being delivered. It should have a start date. Right, let me just go and see if this is my screen going full screen. Can you see the full screen? Okay, excellent. So when we look at the, is it still on full screen? No, oh, okay. Now I know what's happening. Right, let me go back. So when you're starting to look at a project, you are going to go, it has to be unique. It should have a start date and an end date, and it should have a deliverable. So if we go back to our project, let's say the Beijing Airport, that was one of the examples that we had in there. Or let's say one of the examples that you shared, which is the raising funds for COVID patients. Number one, it will be unique because you might not have done a fundraiser before for the COVID patients. But let's say it's the second time you're doing it, but maybe you're trying to do it differently because the first time it didn't work out. So that would be the uniqueness of it. It's got a deliverable. You are raising funds for your for the patients, so it has to be delivered to them. It's either a service or it's a tangible output that you're giving, and it needs to have a start date and an end date. So, and this is possibly the most important thing about projects, it is that it needs to have a start date, a day when it starts and a day when it ends. And that's how you would define a project, by saying that it can only be a project if the outcome is unique, if it's a start date and an end date, and it's a deliverable. So let's look at an example of what could not be a project. So the reopening of your schools. Let's stop sharing, and then I'm going to talk. Would the reopening of schools be a project after your school holidays? or your college after your school holidays? Would it be a project? Because it'll have a start date and an end date. It will have deliverables that they have to teach you. So will it be a project? A yes or a no answer in the chat window will do. Aha, I've got yes, I've got no. I think no. Any more answers to come through? Sometimes yes. Any more examples? Oh yes, no, I guess. Right. So in my opinion, now this is again how project management is different. It depends on how you define it as well. So the answer would be no if it was a standard reopening of the school or the college, because even though there's a deliverable, there's a start date, there's an end date, there's no uniqueness about it, because, and someone's pointed out, if there's not a ceremony, let's say if there is a ceremony and that ceremony is unique, you could treat that ceremony as a project and say it's a unique project. The establishment or the delivery of the ceremony would become a project in itself. But the running of the school, unless we are going into a new scenario, which would be post-COVID, where we would go, we now need to enforce new health and safety rules. And that's when it becomes unique around the delivery of that particular year as happening as a project. But because it's going to become more of a health and safety thing, which is going to become a regular practice, it would probably become business as usual, as they say. Have any of you heard the term business as usual? You can use the thumbs up or thumbs. There's no thumbs down. There's only a thumbs up here. Yeah. So business as usual is when you are going to be doing things as a regular part of your business. So let's go back to another example, which was probably going to be a good one for me to talk about. If I were to say Apple's iPhone. Yeah, how many of you got iPhones? Yeah, many of you've got Apple products. Ah, there you go. So let's talk about a new example with using Apple. So the first time the Apple iPhone was launched, before it was launched, let's say we go back to the prototype phase, okay, where they're just designing and testing it. Would that be a project? You can use the chat window to say yes or a no. I've got one yes. Yes. Oh, good. Oh, that is very nice. So yes, it is a yes, because it meets the three criteria. It is unique. It would have had a start date and an end date, and it would have a deliverable, which is the iPhone. So after it has developed the prototype and it's now going to launch into big manufacturing process, that is when it is called business as usual, because it's going to now develop more of those items, which is the iPhone, and it's going to mass produce them. But so they've done the first prototype, they've got a market, they've started to produce it, manufacture it, which is business as usual. So if they were to launch a new model, would that be the development of the new model in the prototype again? Would that be a new project? Again, a yes or a no in the chat would do. Yes. That's correct. So the answers that have come in the chat window, it is correct. So every time you're doing a unique adjustment, and because it's unique, it will be considered as a project. So going forward now, with what is it that a project normally has, let's go to the most important things that exist in projects. So there are three things that you need to consider when you are dealing with any project: time, cost, and quality. Now, these three are referred to as the triple constraints. So there is time, there is cost, there is quality. Let's go to the example of Apple again. And I'm going to stop sharing again so I can look at people. If I were to say that if Apple was developing this particular product, which is the iPhone, for the first time, which one of the three constraints, which is the time, cost, or quality, would be the most important for them? Cost, okay. Quality, cost. Depends. Any more coming through? Maybe I'll give 30 seconds. Time. Yeah, that could be true. Yeah, someone's really put the answer quite correctly in there. So probably quality from Steve Jobs' perspective, because if we were to think back around when the iPhone came in, the most important thing for the iPhone was its unique features. And that meant that its quality had to be really top-notch. So it didn't matter in terms of time, it didn't matter in terms of cost, because the time of the launch would have been decided once they had a good, decent product, which had good quality features. So normally, and someone's written in here in the answers, it depends. It really depends on what is it that the company or the purpose of the project is that's trying to do. So let's go back to the example that you all had provided me about raising funds for the COVID patients. Which of these three do you think would be the most important thing in here? The time, the cost, or the quality? So you're raising funds for the COVID-19 patients. Out of the triple constraint, time, cost, or quality, which one do you think is going to be the most important? Excellent. And look, all of you have said pretty much the same thing here, because you all know that it is time critical to make this project happen in certain number of days and have the money raised in certain number of days, because you have to give it to the people who need it the most, which is absolutely right. So let's take one last example where we can say, if I were to say that you have to deliver an event, and I'm saying that your budget has to be limited to $20,000 or 20,000 of whatever currency that you would be dealing with. And I say that it's meant to be held in May 2022, and you need to have good quality food. The event needs to be done with good health and safety measures. What becomes the most important thing here now for me? The time, the cost or the quality? And because I'm paying for the event, which probably I'm not, it's hypothetical, okay? um, if I'm saying I don't have more than $20,000, what would be the most important thing in this particular project? Nice, well done. Seeing some good responses in there. Yes, the cost will be the important thing, because as the project, as the person paying for the project, or for all the costs related to the project, I'm saying I cannot pay more than $20,000. So for all the work that you undertake, you have to make sure that it cannot go over 20,000. So it's kind of fixed to say the cost is fixed at $20,000, and I cannot go anywhere around, even maybe more than that. But there are a lot of other things that we will consider when we are actually working on projects. Right. So after that, so we've understood the triple constraint, the time, the cost, the quality. Now I'm going to go back to my slides. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to think through about, why do you think we've chose project management has these three as the key areas? Why are these three the most important things to consider when you're managing a project? So I'll give you some time to think, maybe 3 minutes. And then what we can do is we can get to start typing in the responses in the chat window. Why are time, cost, and quality so important for a project to be considered? So think through your answer. And yeah, if you are ready, you can start typing in your responses into the chat. So we've got quite a good number of people in the room. So let's have at least 20 responses in here, so I can see that we can all benefit from what we're trying to learn here today. Nice, some really good responses coming in through there. I'm just going to do that. So some really good responses coming out in the chat. So I would encourage, if you haven't already, to read through those, because I think there are some really good responses there about why the 3 triple constraints are so important. And I like some of the analysis that is being presented here. I know many of you have said, because about the success of a project, you want to put it as cost, quality, or time. But when you do a project, so let's pause that for a minute. And so I'm going to start debriefing the comments that are in there. So the success of a project, how do you think the success of a project needs to be defined? And I know some of you have said it depends on, the cost, the quality, or the time around what has been provided to you, if it reaches its goals. So the goal, what was the term we used? There was a term I showed in the second slide or the third slide, I think. So those were the 3 things that a project has to be defined as a project. Deliverable. Excellent. Yes. So the deliverable and the link to whether the deliverable is achieving what the customer actually wanted you to achieve. That'll determine the success. So I know you've said, we've talked about time, cost, and quality, but the success of a project is probably not so dependent on those 3, but on the deliverable that is being achieved. So coming back to our discussion about the triple constraint, and many of you have pointed that out, is that there is a push-pull relationship between time, cost, and quality. So if we were to imagine it like a triangle with cost on the top and time on this side and quality on this side, what happens is when you start to move things around, there's going to be an impact. So let's say you don't have enough money to pay the staff to produce the deliverable. It'll either impact the time, because it means that the project's going to take longer, or it'll impact the quality of the project or the item, the deliverable, because you're going to make, you probably have to go, oh, I don't have enough money. I might not be able to buy the items I need to. And you notice that there is that push-pull relationship between those 3, the time, cost, and quality. There's always that relationship. So let's go and think whether you have an example in your life, and you don't have to share this, but I'm going to check in through emoticons with all of you. Have you had a time in your life or a situation in your life when you either didn't have enough time, or you didn't have enough money, or you had to compromise on quality? Think through, and we can just go a yes or a no. Has there been a time in your life or a situation when you didn't have enough time, you didn't have enough money, or you had to compromise the quality of what you were producing? So I'll give you 30 seconds to think through. I love that example. If you want to share it, feel free to share it. Well, if you don't want to, then that's all right. There's no pressure to share that example. Cooking. Oh, it's a perfect example. Oh, doing homework. Yes. Housework. Yeah. Compromising always on quality. Yeah, we don't have enough time. and we don't have enough money to hire anyone, so we compromise on quality. What else do you guys think? What else would be a good example for the push pull relationship that'll exist in our day-to-day lives? There it is, shopping. Yeah, in shopping we have to often do that. Often, so many times. Imagine us trying to consider shopping as projects. And you're starting to draw the triangle and go time, cost, quality, which one's going to be my priority, and focus on which one I want to go with. Oh, well, which uni to go to? Yes, that's true. That'll again be a really, it'll be a hard one to choose, especially now with all the situation around. Yeah. So as you can see, in our life, we are undertaking projects on a day-to-day basis. We when we go for traveling, we will be undertaking a project. When we cook, we undertake a project. When we go shopping, we undertake a project, because all of these are unique. They've got a start time and an end time, or a start date or an end date, and they've got a deliverable. So on a day-to-day basis, you are already project managers. So this is how I'm just giving you the terminology to actually learn about project management. Yeah. So let's go back to our slides now. So we've looked at why these are important, and you can pick up so much more from your experiences in everyday life, that you can start when you go after today's class. Look at examples in your life around where you can see projects actually happening. Yeah. So now here's the last bit of the day, which I'm going to go through with you. So what I'd want to know is, we've talked about how to define a project, what are the examples of projects. We looked at the triple constraint. We looked at why those three are important. What I want you to tell me, and we'll use the chat window, and you can type in the chat, share one new concept or one thing you learned from the session today. Okay, so I can give you 3 minutes. I think that'll be enough. So type it into the chat window, and I'll keep reading what we get, so everyone knows what we are getting in the chat window, and I'll know which is the popular concept for today. So anything that I have shared with you, what has been the one concept or thing you learned from this session today? It can be a list of words, it can be a statement, it can be just one word. Nice. So I can see the responses are coming through. Very good. Excellent. Right. Are we getting more responses? I'm going to wait another couple of minutes so they can keep coming through. Projects are everywhere in our lives. That's a really good concept to learn today. Excellent. And I can see that the triple constraints were a popular thing, but I can also see that many of you are also realizing that actually you have projects in your day-to-day life, which is great. So I'll give another 1 more minute. So if you want to type in any other concepts or things that you might have learned from today. And I can see that there's a message there that if you have any questions, you can type it in as well. But yeah, if we don't have any more of the responses related to the new concept, feel free to put in the questions, and I'll come back to it once we've kind of reached the conclusion of the session. Right. So that brings us to the end of this little bit of a session around what is project management. Okay, this is not a full-fledged class. I wanted, because it was a taster class that was going to give you an idea around project management. Now, if you want to email me, you can do that at and I'm at Lincoln University, or you can go ahead and, you know, and that's what a lot of people do here when I meet students. They go and look me up on social media. So I am on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me, feel free to do that. Just put that in the message that you attended the project management taster class, because otherwise I get a bit baffled around, where did I meet you? So yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing my slide now, and let's look at some questions that might have come through. Right, so project management and product management. Now, you will have to get more into the details of this. And unfortunately, I can't do it in this particular session. But what you can do is you can go to pmi.org or the Project Management Institute and Google them. It's called PMI, and you can get more details about this over there. So you can have a look at it and go, because a product is about developing a specific product which is within a project, and there may be different products that are being developed to be linked to a larger project. So that's where your unique product and your unique project come together. But more details, you can get it on the Project Management Institute's website. If I see the potential of a project but don't have enough time or money, should I start the project? Well, it depends what kind of project it is going to be. Now, I am a lecturer at Lincoln University, but I also run a charity. So I undertake a lot of projects to help out the community. If it's a service project where you know that your resources are going to come from somewhere else, you can start it. You know, you're crowdsourcing your time and money, but that deliverable, because it's going to be very unique, you can go ahead and do it. And as a service, as someone who's been doing projects for a charity for almost 6 years now, I can tell you generally, when you're trying to do good for the community through these projects, you will get time or money from various resources. Okay. So it might be a good idea because the deliverable or the outcome that you're looking for is going to benefit the community. So totally go for it. And if you need more guidance on how to go about it, I'm absolutely I'll be more than happy to help you out and how to do it. Okay. I have questioned that during the implementation of the plan, how do we realize that we have strayed from the original mission? Right. So when you are managing projects, when you start off your project, and this is what I teach at the university, is how to develop a project plan. And as a part of that project plan, you set up some milestones, you set up regular meetings, you set up ways in which you monitor the budget, you monitor the time schedule, you even stop and pause these days to look at, is the project going to deliver what we wanted it to deliver? If at some point in time, I am looking at a product, let's say if we were to look at two competitors, okay? Both competitors are trying to produce new and unique items. But let's say your competitor has already developed something so much better, and they're already in the market and they've already captured the market. So your team can now go, well, do we really want to go out and spend money promoting our product after it's launched to capture the market? It's going to take us a lot more money to do that. Should we instead readjust our mission and look at something new that the competitor hasn't done? So there are a lot of times that this would happen, and this is what the regular checkpoints in your project allow you to do. How can I know if my project is unique or not? Right now, when you're trying to define the uniqueness of the project, you would be the best person to define it, because if it's, again, it depends on whether it's a service project or if it's going to be working for a company. If you're working for a company, you will have a team who will tell you. You will have your managers who will tell you. But if you're trying to do it just on an individual basis, you'd be the best person to define uniqueness. Can I share an unforgettable project that I have joined? I haven't joined an unforgettable project. I have led unforgettable projects. So this is part of the work I do as a person who leads a few charity projects for my charity. There is a project called, and I can share screen if you guys want to have a look at it. And I'm going to very briefly spend 20 seconds on this. So this is a project I recently completed. It was picked up by the media as well. It's about showcasing diversity in New Zealand. So we captured the stories of 24 different immigrants and highlighted how they add to the New Zealand culture. So this is possibly my most unique project, and I'm very proud of it. But we've got lots of questions in here. I've got in that, how can we manage risk properly? Right. So when you're talking about risks, again, this is a taster class. When we have a full-fledged 12-week project management class, I teach how to manage risks and how risk management is done in projects. Right. Are there any other factors that are not as crucial, but we also need to consider? There are a lot of factors that you need to consider when you're managing a project. Okay, it's time, cost, quality are the most important ones, but you'll have a project team, you will have your stakeholders, you will have to look at who are the people I need to talk to. So the project planning bit is where all the other factors come in. If a project doesn't succeed, what are the implications? Now, number one, it depends how you define what success is of the project. Number two, on a personal level, if it doesn't succeed, I wouldn't beat myself, because if it hasn't succeeded, I have definitely learned so much from it. Well, if it's from an organization's perspective, if it's not successful, there will be a full assessment of why it wasn't successful. And then that's what will determine the implications of what happens. Any tools or templates for project planning, you can go to pmi.org and they will have heaps of items there for you to look at. Cross-country projects in COVID-19 scenario. Look, it's all going, apparently 2022, we are all going to go back to international travel, and we are all going to start being somewhat pre-COVID, but not exactly the same. We will have a lot of other health and safety things that will be put in place, but there's obviously that's going to just continue. Okay, we paused for a little bit, and we found new ways on how we can do a lot of things like virtual meetings and all of that stuff is kind of taken up, but we still will be moving around quite a bit. So our projects are going to happen. Right, I can see a lot more questions coming through. I think we'll cut with the question now, because I think otherwise there's going to be quite a lot. What is the most important benefit for us when joining a not-for-profit organization project? I think you get to learn a lot, number one. And number two, with the not-for-profit, because you're not working for money, there is a greater cause that you're working for, you get a lot of satisfaction. You end up getting far more than what you expected when you finish that project. I cannot tell you how much that means to me, because I work on a lot of projects in the not-for-profit sector. They add a lot to you as an individual, and you learn a lot as well. And you learn about people, because there'll be a lot of other people who will be in there who are there to share. So you learn so much more. The giving is what makes not-for-profit projects so much more nicer to be involved with. Whereas your for-profit organizations, you go and do it because it pays you the money. When a project involves medicine and health or food or beverage, does it need as much time and money as possible to focus only on the, well, medicine, health, beverages? I think it's hard to put all of them under one group. They all have their own different requirements. And when you are working on a project in medicine and health, let's say the COVID vaccination, okay, classic example of a project. The first time it was produced, it was a project because it was unique. It had a deliverable. Although it had a start date, we didn't know when it was going to end, but there was a tentative end date. It is important because there was unlimited money put into it, and there was no specific time. So you can see that with that, you will not have these time frames, triple constraint, but the quality was very important when you talked about COVID vaccination. Food and beverage will be completely different, okay? It depends on the standards that every country has. Again, with beverage, it depends what kind of beverage you're producing. So it also depends about what kind of market do you want to capture. That's another of the management topics I cover. Your market, do you want to go just sell to anybody, or do you want to sell to a smaller group but make it good quality products? So you have to think through that. How can we evaluate and keep track? Yeah, and I've answered that. So when you're looking at your projects, you develop a project plan, and that project plan is constantly monitored to check for progress, to look at how things need to be done. Right? I hope I've answered pretty much all the questions. Yeah, and I hope you guys enjoyed the class. I just wanted to do a little bit of emoticon celebration. So did you guys enjoy the class? Let's have a celebration or a thumbs up emoticon from those who really enjoyed the class. Nice, very nice. Oh, lovely to hear that. That's very nice to hear that you guys enjoyed your class. Right, so that's all I have for you. And look, any one of you, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I see that from the comments, a lot of you are interested in the not-for-profit sector and want to be involved in there. And I think it's a great start. It'll be really good for you guys to go and do the good you can for the communities you are part of. So don't shy away from it. Right, good luck to all of you. Right, so I think I will end the class. Can I end? No, maybe not.